this edition of Southern Newsweek, new survey results reveal Otago business owners are feeling positive, but commercial enterprises still have some hurdles. A public debate reveals Queenstown's popularity may be becoming a negative as residents call for change. And an annual rally is about to stop at a new but old location for the first time in almost 50 years. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. Business confidence throughout Otago is improving, as shown in the latest Pulse and Higgs survey. Analysts say most of the region's business owners are optimistic about the economic forecast for the next year, but they warn commercial sectors aren't without some problems.
Number crunching in relation to the local economy. Staff at Dunedin firm Pulse and Higgs are going through the results of their latest survey. They've been gauging the confidence of business owners throughout Otago.
So we basically asked them one question, which is, do you believe general business conditions over the next 12 months in Otago will improve, remain the same or deteriorate?
The latest monthly survey garnered responses from 105 Otago business owners. The majority are optimistic about the region's general economic outlook for the next 12 months.
So the August results are slightly more positive than July, with 56% of respondents saying they believe general business conditions in Otago will improve. 36% said stay the same, and 8% thought that general business conditions will deteriorate.
Walker says there are several contributing factors to the positive mood. A brighter Fonterra milk forecast is having an impact, as are strengths in other industries.
The industries which seem to be going well at the moment are construction. The service industry seems to be going well. You could put that down to house prices rising, low interest rates, which gives people more confidence to go out there and spend on food or spend in retail or whatever tickles their fancy.
He says while there's cause for business owners to be happy going into Christmas, they should also be planning for any possible downturns in their respective industries. In Otago, at least one sector's success is generating issues.
With tourism booming, there are some problems. Biggest problem from them is capacity constraints, so finding good quality staff, which is keeping our HR division here at Pulse and Higgs very busy.
Walker says staff are helping regional business owners plan for the next 12 months, aiming to ease any forthcoming hardships, and they'll continue to garner the collective mood across Otago's economy. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
Submissions are now open for a proposed $60 million upgrade of Skyline Queenstown. Those behind the 50-year-old centre say expansion is necessary to keep up with demand. And members of the public have just under a month to have their say.
It's an impressive skyline, which the management at Skyline Queenstown say won't be harmed in any way by a proposed $60 million expansion project. Assistant General Manager Wayne Rose says it's been 3 decades since the gondola cabins, chairlifts and facilities were last upgraded.
So the gondola opened in 1967, there was an upgrade in 1987, some 30 years ago, and it's now time to set the complex up for the next 30 years to come.
People have until the 8th of October to make a submission to the Queenstown Lakes District Council in relation to the publicly notified resource consent application. Rose says transparency is important to the organisation, and he outlines the potential construction period should the project proceed.
Well, the Skyline complex is planned to proceed from April 2017, with the base terminal building in September 2017, with full construction expected to be completed by around July 2018.
The gondola cabins currently seat 4 people, which Rose says isn't keeping up with demand, especially at peak times.
Currently we're running a 4-seater gondola cabin. We're looking to increase that to a 10-seater. They'll increase capacity from roughly 1,100 people an hour to about 3,000 people an hour. And from a mountain biking perspective, 5 riders and 5 bikes.
He says the building's floor space will grow considerably, but not its visual impact on the skyline. At the Skyline Queenstown, Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Queenstown's popularity is starting to become its downfall, with residents worried about worsening traffic and housing affordability. Those were among issues prompting about 400 people to attend a public debate for mayor and councillor candidates in the resort last night. And many spectators were unified in their calls for change.
airing the big issues. Queenstown residents were out in force last night, hearing from the resort's mayor and councillor hopefuls. Many locals say the town isn't coping with demand from outside.
It's the pressure from tourism, the pressure on the local infrastructure, and the problem is the locals have to pay for it at this stage, and things have to change.
He says Queenstown's councillor and mayoral candidates seem to agree on the town's problems. They include traffic congestion and the ever-increasing cost of housing. But Dunlop's not convinced the solutions being suggested will help the mainstream population.
The average voter in the area, they're not really being looked after. It's all about looking after the big businesses or people who need to come in accommodation-wise to work here. And you know, there is crossover obviously, but you know, what are they actually going to do for the average Joe worker?
There are 5 mayoral hopefuls for the Queenstown Lakes District and 19 council candidates. Some residents are pleased with the diversity of campaigners and the potential for change.
I'd like to see some of the younger ones get in. I think they're a bit more creative, a bit more innovative, a bit more onto the technology.
Queenstown's long been toying with the idea of introducing a visitor levy to help pay for infrastructure. There are also special housing areas earmarked for development. Many locals say it's well and truly time for action.
It's a tough time for some people in Queenstown at the moment, and I think potential councillors have to address those issues.
Whatever the outcome of next month's elections, one thing's for certain: Queenstown's visitor growth isn't expected to slow anytime soon. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
A leading Otago athlete is making the most of a change in scenery. Challenge Wanaka winner Dougal Allen has recently moved with his young family to Oamaru, and he says the shift in pace is ticking all the boxes.
Making time for family. 30-year-old professional triathlete Dougal Allen is settling into a slightly different lifestyle. With a 2-year-old and another baby on the way, he says the move from Wanaka to Oamaru has been a positive one.
What we've found here is actually a lot quieter pace of life, which really suits us with growing our young family. We want, you know, like a real community with a heart and soul.
Although Oamaru may be small, the professional triathlete says it's proving to be a perfect place for training. Having
good swimming pool here, which we do, and good, quiet, safe roads to ride my bike on has been awesome, and obviously new routes to explore, and running too. Like, there's just a whole mixture of terrain here.
Allen started multi-sport and off-road racing in Dunedin, then moved to Wanaka, where he continued to make an impact as an athlete. He became focused on triathlon and says the sport suits his physiology, backed up with a history of endurance racing. This year he won Challenge Wanaka and says that's been a huge highlight.
I've had some podium places in races like the Coast to Coast and in Challenge Wanaka in previous years, but it's the old cliche, no one remembers second place, and for me to finally crack a big race like that with a really, really good competitive international field in front of, you know, an Otago home support crowd, it's a memory that will last a lifetime.
He's now training for a couple of half-iron distance races in China in coming months. Over the summer he'll be trying to shape up for Challenge Wanaka 2017. Allen's aiming to better his previous efforts and once again come away with the top result.
Day to day it's usually 2 to 3 training sessions made up of obviously swimming, biking and running, but also I do a lot of work in the gym on strength work, and probably the weekly average would be in that kind of 25-hour range, which for a professional athlete's not massive hours. I'm not a big believer in just going out and doing huge volume for the sake of it, so there's a real quality focus there too.
He's also spending more time coaching others, helping them to push through their own physical boundaries. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
The annual Silver Fern Rally is stopping in Gore this year for the first time since 1969. Just over 40 cars are registered to compete in the event, which begins and ends in Christchurch. And the change is motivating at least one driver to join the starting lineup.
Preparing for his next race. Gore Rally driver Derek Asen is excited about making his Silver Fern Rally debut in his hometown. He'll be one of almost 100 drivers and co-drivers taking part in the event, in which Gore is featuring more prominently this year.
First time I've ever entered. We've watched it quite a few times, and this year we decided it's time to have a go ourselves.
ASIN has a 6-person team, including a co-driver and a 2-car support crew. For the first time in more than 4 decades, Gore will be the 3rd overnight stop in the week-long rally. ASIN says although there are some tough competitors among the entrants, he feels he has as good a chance as any.
There'll be Vince Bristow. He's very fast. A few of the overseas guys are very quick and have won the event before. Some of our locals, Jeff Judd, Brian Stokes, those guys, they're pretty fast as well. So the good thing with the Silver Fern Rally, it's all 2-wheel drive cars, so everyone's pretty even, so it makes it pretty fair.
Drivers, organisers and supporters will be staying in Gore for the night of December the 1st, once the rallies pass through Oamaru and Dunedin. They'll then be travelling back to Dunedin before continuing on to Timaru and the Christchurch finish line. ASIN says he's expecting a good crowd to greet the drivers as they journey through the closed back streets of Gore.
Yeah, and if the day's nice, there's a lot of people out watching it, and it's pretty cool. I mean, to have people sort of cheering on, and if, particularly being local as well, I'd expect there'll be quite a few people out watching.
To date, there are 42 teams entered in the race. The event's giving both ASIN and the town of Gore an opportunity to make a big impression. Jack Conroy, The South Today.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, we find out why an Australian artist has been arranging some of Dunedin's school pupils into a large group. And primary school kids in Gore put their sustainability thinking caps on for a national competition. Welcome back. An Australian conceptual artist is in the country encouraging people to walk at 1,800 kilometres per minute while standing still. He's been trialling the space-themed stunt at King's High School, arranging dozens of pupils in a large group. And the work is going to add to an upcoming art festival.
Standing still, but still travelling. These 60 King's High School pupils are technically moving at 1,800 kilometres a minute, relative to the sun. They became part of an international artwork on the school's #1 rugby ground this afternoon, under the guidance of Australian artist John Reid.
There are special environmental significances of actually doing the solar walk here at King's, because this was all flooded a year ago. And so these are sort of like signs of the sorts of impacts that climate change will have on our lives. And so I think the community here at St Clair have already experienced something of what we can expect.
Reid is an Emeritus Fellow at the Australian National University in Canberra. He arranged the Year 10 pupils before his colleague and photographer Marzina Vasikova captured the images. She's travelling with the environmental artist, documenting his solar system walks, like this one in Dunedin.
So John works out the layout of the participants, and then we correct that in relation to the perspective and the lens that I might be using. There's a vanishing perspective and an overlapping factor that we need to consider.
The King's Gathering is the only group-based event the artists are organising in New Zealand. 2 of the 60 pupils who were keen to be part of the artwork were also happy to share their experiences with The South Today.
I was going to plan on having the day off because I'm a bit nervous, but everyone else said they were doing it, so I just thought I might as well come along and, yeah, took part.
I guess in a way it's sort of like honouring, because if they chose just, us, just little old me from King's High School.
Reid says the resulting images from today will appear on his webpage and Facebook account. A mural-sized print will also be exhibited at the Dunedin School of Arts Symposium next month. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
The wider Queenstown area is experiencing solid visitor growth, with more people taking in its scenery and attractions. The increase has spurred one of the area's main wineries to re-evaluate its facilities, and its proprietor believes an expansion will help in keeping up with the demand.
Building on a solid foundation. The well-established Gibson Valley Winery is undertaking several major projects to cement its place in Queenstown's future tourism market. The winery's chief executive says this early work is part of a bigger multi-million-dollar development.
Over the last few years we've concentrated on items such as building a new winery and putting in place a team that has now given us the opportunity to start making physical changes. And this year I'm excited to say that we are putting in a new administration building so our team can have good offices.
Hunt says in the years to come, the facility will also provide lodge-style accommodation. However, he's keen to have other projects up to scratch first.
And then we're putting in new restaurant facilities and outdoor facilities to improve the experience for our guests. And I wanted to get those completed before we moved on to the next stage, which was the construction of our cottages and our lodge, because I wanted to make sure that the winery was at the level of expectation of our guests when they came to stay with us.
Hunt says the business has secured the services of local architect Michael Wyatt to design the lodge and 30 cottages. He says the overall development has a price tag in the tens of millions of dollars. And there's no concrete deadline in place as yet. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Sustainability has been championed at a grassroots level in Gore, where school children have developed a new product. A primary school class is entering its concept in a national competition based on the merits of recycling, and the pupils' efforts are aiding their curricular commitments.
Reusing a common household item. Pupils from Gore Main School are working hard on their entry for this year's Fair Go Kids Ad Awards. Tasked with designing and making a product from recycled materials, they'll soon be producing a television ad to sell it. Teacher Tammy Fiveash says the kids are loving the challenge.
They came up with lots of different ideas which were a wee bit far-fetched, but we tried to bring it in as much as we could so it related to the school.
The primary school prides itself on being sustainable. Fiveash says the ad competition's providing a chance to further the kids' learning about the importance of recycling. It's tying in with the children's lessons about the impact their actions have on the environment.
By recycling, it uses so much less money and power and energy to actually create something where you've got the raw materials already, as opposed from making it from scratch. So recycling is very important, especially with Gore Main School. We're an enviro school, and so we try to keep things as eco-friendly as possible.
Students at the school already design their own playgrounds, plant trees, and tend to their own garden. Fitting with this theme, their ad competition product is a series of plant boxes made from milk bottles, protected by a milk bottle frame. While the main aim is to learn about sustainability, some pupils are enjoying the task for other reasons.
That everyone gets to have a go at it, and not just a few people.
Because it's a lot of fun and you don't have to do that much work at all.
The wider school community is involved in the project, with students and parents sourcing more than 500 milk bottles to date. The entry deadline is in late October, and Fiveash says the more bottles the better. She only asks that they be washed first. Jack Conroy, The South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, we meet an artist who's finding influence in lands that are poles apart. And an annual celebration of Polynesian styles gets underway after a sombre start. Welcome back. A Dunedin artist is sharing her unique Antarctica-inspired works while raising money for the Castleberg Trust. The printmaker is working on more multimedia pieces, having been moved by the vastness and extreme temperatures of the subantarctic region. But she now has her sights set on discovering the secrets of another foreign land.
At Dee Copeland's studio on the Otago Peninsula, she looks over works created after her trip to Antarctica back in the summer of 2002. The works form an exhibition called Sub-Zero, and she's sharing her stories with others to help raise funds for the Castleberg Trust.
I was relatively new to the area. I'm not from Dunedin, and I felt it was a way of helping people see what I do, and also to share this very unique experience that I had of going to Antarctica.
Copland always had a desire to go to the frozen continent and says it's her interest in the survival of humankind that drew her there. She describes it as a frozen desert, vast in its beauty with so many shades of white and blue, an inspiring place to be creative.
Being an artist, you tend to be very, very aware, and you want to take in as much as you possibly can take in. So I just opened up my senses and wrote like crazy, drew like crazy, even at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't care what time I was out there drawing.
She's working on another show that deals with global warming in the southern hemisphere, and now has her sights set on going to one of the hottest parts of Australia.
I'm very intrigued to see what life forms live in an extreme of heat in a desert situation. So that is something on my radar now.
In the meantime, the printmaker will continue to use her Antarctic experiences to bring life to her art and call upon her inner resources, just like the early explorers did back in Shackleton's day. Dee Karen, The South Today.
Hundreds of people have taken the opportunity to get up close and personal with some highly sought after classic cars recently. The theme of this year's Auto Spectacular show in Dunedin was A Day at the Races, and there were some very expensive makes and models on display.
Every year, the Auto Spectacular draws a large crowd of motoring enthusiasts. The event's been running since 1975, when it was just a swaparama. These days, the car show still has trade sites and swap meets, and it's attracted entries from 40 car clubs in the region, as well as individuals. And there are some expensive examples on display.
Well, there's at least 3 here that are worth more than $1 million. One of them is a brand new Lamborghini. Another one is a Maserati race car based on a 57 that has just been built by Rod Tempero. It's a fabulous car. And there's also, I believe, a Porsche there that's something in the region of $1.5 million.
Many of the classic cars are cars of interest, such as this Steve Ross McRae, which won the Formula 5000 3 times. And Casey says it's important to keep the show interesting by having a theme.
We have a theme each year, and this year, because of all the race cars and the Porsches here, we had At the Races as a theme. And most of the clubs have adopted it, and some of them are just wonderful the way they've done their exhibition.
One car that stood out at the show was a 1959 Plymouth Suburban. It's powered by a 313 Poly V8 Chrysler motor and has a push-button 2-stage transmission. The labour of love took 15 years to complete, and owner Graham Beard says one of the main talking points has been its colour.
Took a long time to decide, went through oranges and reds and pastel colours, but the green really, it's a Ford colour, Envy green. Yeah, it just suits it, brings out the chrome, and the chrome brings the paint out, and it's quite good.
The organisers of the event, the Otago Classic Motoring Club and the Fairlane and Falcon Club, give away a portion of the proceeds to charity. And this year, it's Canteen that will benefit. Dee Karen, The South Today.
Around 6,000 young performers took to the stage recently at the annual Polyfest in Dunedin. The event began on a sombre note, with organisers remembering community leader Michael Laufeso, who died recently. And then the respectful start made way for warm smiles.
Ho mai te paki paki. The Festival of Polynesian Performing Arts, known as Polyfest, began on a sombre note last night, with organisers remembering community leader Michael Laufeso. However, in true Polynesian style, sorrow gave way to smiles as proud whānau cheered on their tamariki.
And I think for a lot of young people in Otago region, this may be the only other opportunity they have engaged with another cultural language that they, particularly from English, so they get to learn a lot more te reo, and also they might have some Pacific culture exposure as well.
Organisers estimate around 6,000 pupils from the Waitaki River to Invercargill will perform at this year's event. While many of the audience sees the polished performances on stage with the children at their best, it takes many hours of rehearsal to get them up to a standard. This year, 7 schools have called in expert help in the form of a couple of kapahaka tutors.
Probably my passion in Manawa is the taha wahine for the girls, looking after the girls, and making sure I try my hardest to help to instill the values, the qualities that they need to embrace to become strong, very strong, staunch, independent, beautiful, graceful young women. Nice to meet you as well.
Ana Pene's partner, Kopua Waititi, is also guiding these pupils from St Joseph's Cathedral School and a handful of others through Polyfest. He says a significant moment in the couple's life prompted him to engage with his whakapapa.
In 2010, Ana and I had the birth of our first son, and when he was born, everything kind of got real, and that's when we quit our full-time jobs and decided to follow this path on Māoritanga, was mainly because of our kids.
While many schools have strong cultural units, and in some cases Te Reo Māori immersion units, some chose to bring specialists in to help.
And Ana and Kopua have just been amazing. They're amazing, and if you want a quality performance, you hire quality people, and they've just been amazing and have taught our kids so much.
Polyfest runs at the Edgar Centre until Friday afternoon. Organisers say for the first time, all the performances are being broadcast live on the Otago Polyfest Facebook page. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, or you can keep up with Southern News via our website, channel39.co.nz. I'm Holly Buchanan, thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.